F9, or The Fast and the Furious 9, out in theaters now, 20 years after the first one, if you can believe it. Starring Vin Diesel, Michelle Rodriguez, Tyrese Gibson, Ludacris, Charlize Theron, and John Cena. The story this time around, if anybody cares anymore, is that Kurt Russell's airplane is shot down and he was carrying some sort of precious cargo which he now needs Vin Diesel's crew to recover. They do, but before they can escape with it, it's stolen by this new mysterious car-driving supervillain who turns out to be Dom's long-lost brother that nobody knew he had, and he's also an Avenger-level super spy just like Dom. Holy shit, it's like a Venezuelan soap opera at this point. Anyway, Jakob, as he's called, played by John Cena, he's traveling around the world to all these different places, like in a James Bond movie, to get the missing pieces of this magical technical gizmo, which will allow him to hack into all weapons on Earth or whatever, who cares. And stopping him will require Dom to recruit many old friends from the previous movies, including Helen Mirren as the mother of Jason Statham, fan favorite character Han, who literally comes back from the dead, and Sean, the main guy from Tokyo Drift, who we haven't seen in many, many years. So first thing you need to know is that somehow the movie manages to exceed the previous part in the scale of the spectacle and simultaneously in the absurd stupidity of its plot and the things that happen on screen. And these two things kind of go hand in hand, they're tied together, because in order to believe what's going on the screen in terms of all the stunts and so on, you really have to shut off your brain completely. This time we've got super powerful electromagnets that can drag a car through a building or glue it to a flying plane, but at the same time work very selectively to always hurt only the bad guys. We have car chases, of course, and shootouts. We have a set piece involving flipping a giant armored truck over, and then after a while flipping it back on its wheels, all as it's still moving. We have swinging your car on a line from one mountain to another, a la Tarzan. And finally, we have the thing which the internet jokingly suggested when the previous movie was coming out, and then it came true at last. Roman and Tej fly out in space in a car strapped to a rocket. It is silly, it is insane, it is dumb as all shit, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't having fun. And here's the thing, I think that the only reason it's kind of still works is that the movies are aware that it's fucking bonkers at this point, and they embrace it, and they even wink at the audience. I mean, right before going into space, one of the characters says that all they need to do to survive is just obey the laws of physics and they'll be fine. Motherfucker, you haven't obeyed the laws of physics for like 6 movies now. You've just abandoned them entirely. And I'm not even talking about the car shit, the amount of falls and jumps and gunshots and explosions and rockets that these characters, like in person, take on and survive with not a single scratch is just comical. I mean, Avengers have a harder time surviving at this point. These guys are just invincible. Dom has a scene in this movie where he fights dozens of bad guys' henchmen and then proceeds to drop a building on all of them and himself. He falls into this deep shaft with all the rubble, begins to drown in the water, and manages to survive that without so much as a headache. And the movie itself is aware of that. There's a running joke this time around where Roman gets increasingly baffled at the fact that they have had so many ridiculous adventures and always walk away alive. And I swear to God, he's this close to figuring out he's actually in a movie. I hope we get that wall break one day, straight up, just acknowledge that this is a film. It's the only way to somehow end the series, I think. But as much as I enjoyed myself in a guilty pleasure sort of way, there are 2 things that slightly worry me. One is that Paul Walker's absence, due to his tragic death, of course, becomes more apparent with every film. It's becoming more and more clear that it's not Vin Diesel, it was him that was the glue that held all this crew together. I mean, Vin Diesel as Dom just doesn't have that sort of believable charisma to sell him as this, captain that invokes so much loyalty from everyone else. He's essentially a Hulk without the green skin at this point, and he doesn't even have that many interactions with his people, save for Letty and Mia. And I think that's going to be a problem if they make more of these movies, and let's face it, they will. Especially with The Rock and Jason Statham also leaving to their off-spin series and Walker's absence, there is a noticeable hole in this film in terms of having like a lovable central character. And the second problem is maybe not so much of a problem, and it's just that I don't know what else they can do to make the next movie even bigger. I mean, they went to space. The only thing that comes to mind to top that is time travel, which would just about fucking top everything else. Or I've heard rumors actually that there's an idea floating around in Hollywood of making a crossover movie between the Fast and Furious franchise and the Jurassic World franchise. Racing Tyrannosaurus Rex in a supercar. I mean, that would be absolutely insane. But at this point, I think every crazy idea is potentially on the table. I mean, they just went to space in a car. So yeah, it's a balls to the wall, mad film. It doesn't have a good plot. It doesn't have any logic. It doesn't obey the laws of physics. Even kind of the world that it takes place in, you have to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, the amount of destruction and random people that must be dying around all these stunts that this crew is doing. They're destroying buildings and motorways, just killing people left and right. I mean, it's impossible to believe that something like this could happen in real world. But I will give it this: it is a goddamn exciting spectacle, and because it's so self-aware, because it essentially says, "Look, we know it's a movie, just roll with it." Because of that, it's also quite funny, in my opinion, in a good kind of way. So I'm not going to pretend like it's a good movie objectively or deserves any awards or any of that shit. But at what it's trying to do, a brainless popcorn action film, which is fun above everything else, it succeeds. I enjoyed it a whole lot.